Alright, I'm coming back to where I left off on the Dreamscape, how to pick the right Dreamscape cards video. And where I left off in part 1 was talking about Armistice. So far I've only focused on what are the high-end ways to use Armistice. Primarily watching for your opponent's best card to have not shown up. There are very few cards left in their deck. You're almost certain it's in their hand, or you are certain it's in their hand, and you make them discard it. It's a real jerk move, but it's a real good way to make them essentially have never got the effect of this huge investment that they put in during the game. That goes really, really far. Kind of ruins things for a few people, and that's exactly what you want for yourself. Now, the other primary way to use Armistice is to, well, you're a little bit short on power, a little bit short on runes, so you play it after dumping your whole hand. Make sure you've already played your whole hand, and you get to draw a new one. Sometimes people get really caught up in the other sets where you have the opportunity to take a turn again by banishing 2 Wandering Askaras or getting rid of a Tablet of Time's Dawn. The Armistice is even better than both of them. Those other 2 can really shine if you have a lot of construct effects, because you get to take your construct effects again. But this one really shines with Unites. You get to take the second turn drawing up 5 new cards in the same turn. All of your other cards are still in the play area. So you can use this to try to get 3 Lifebound for Nairi's Blessing, to try to get 3 monster kills for Beserker's Frenzy, to set off huge Unites. Maybe you've been looking for your Reverie Muse or your Bringer of Despair, and you've already got your other Void or Lifebound cards. Now you're really likely to draw into it and get to double everything. Maybe you've even already played the doubling card, and now you're just going to get to play as many other things as you can before setting off the Unite. Really, really effective card. An important thing to keep in mind, if you do not have Armistice in your hand, in your private hand, you need to be careful when killing something like a Nihilist that gives you Dreamscape cards off the top of the deck, or playing the Jesse card to get something right off the top of the deck. Always assume it's going to be Armistice if you don't know where this card is. There's only one of them. It's really unfortunate to play Jesse first on your turn, trying to see what cool things you're going to have, maybe rearrange what you're going to do, and then you discard the other 4 cards and draw up 5 new ones. That can be a real pain. Another thing you can use it for is to try to stack your discard or your draw. Maybe your current hand is trash and you're not really looking for anything reach, but you use Armistice right now so that you end up drawing up, shuffling all your best cards together. You're going to get a new hand on top of your one, so it's already going to be more powerful than normal, and you know your next turn is going to be super powerful because you had all your junk already out here in play. Now it's going to hit the discard pile and miss an entire cycle. It's kind of like a temporary banishment. Towards the end of the game, that temporary banishment really feels like you banished that entire hand of 5 cards. You got to use them this one last time and they're gone forever, but they include in your deck value at the end of the game so they don't hurt you. Alright, done talking about Armistice. So of all these big high-cost cards, or the middle-cost cards, no, high-cost. We did Beserker's Frenzy, Nairi's Blessing, those being the top 2 ones because they give a lot of points along with their effects, Armistice being next up. And then the last one is Pasythea. There's a lot of debate on how to say this name. Pasythea, Pasythea, I don't know how you pronounce this. I call it Pasythea. Pasythea. I can't even say what I normally say now. I don't care. This hero obviously is awesome because it's all factions and it gives you a little bit of everything. No draw though. You'll notice there's really nothing that screams Enlightened on this card. Enlightened don't normally gain runes or power. It doesn't have a direct kill. I guess the only Enlightened part about it is that it, quote, sets off Enlightened combos. That's it. But 3 of everything. If you get past the Ward, put it straight into your hand without paying for it. That's really powerful. Great card. And we'll talk about this later, but obviously something like an Imaginative Matron, being able to return a card like this, can set off some huge combos. This is the fourth of the big cards I pick. If I had Beserker's Frenzy and 2 really good low cost, I don't pick this one. If I had Nairi's Blessing and 2 really good low cost ones, I don't pick this. If I only had 1 good low cost and 1 other big high, I'm probably going to pick this as my third Dreamscape card. Now, I have talked about every card that I think takes a large amount of power in this game. You've got your Lunar Embrace, Stalk the Shadows, Vigils Resolve, Arbiter, Censer, Reverie, Muse, and Bringer of Despair. Those are your low cost ones. You want to take those above everything else. Then you've got your middle cost, your Tech Leap and Cetra's Respite. I don't take those over the high or the low. They're just kind of the filler cards, but they're worth taking if you have them. Techno Leap in particular, definitely worth having if you can spare the slot for it. And then your high cost ones that are worth having are Beserkers, Nairi's, Armistice, and Pasythea. Let's talk about everything that's left. If we go back up here to the commons, we have Chronicle of Vigil. This is the next best of the low cost cards in my opinion. You're always going to have constructs no matter what your deck ends up being. You're going to have a few constructs. Gaining some extra honor on that can help you rush the honor pool or just constant steady gain. No problem. Really good. If you can end up with that Mechana construct that transforms this into a Mechana so when you play it you draw, well, that makes it even easier of a no-brainer that you want to pick this up. I don't end up getting it in play all that often anymore, but I do pick it in my starting hand depending upon whatever everything else I have. Next up is Dust to Dust. This card, especially depending upon the sets, is a little bit of a surprisingly great one. Obviously, it doesn't help you build, but if you're playing a multiplayer game with more than just one opponent, being able to wipe everybody else's constructs, this suddenly jumps way up into the must-have cards. If you're playing Realms Unraveled and Dreamscape as a mix, and those are your only 2 sets, this also jumps up into a probably want-to-have card, because there's no construct destruction in Realms, and there's very light construct destruction in Dreamscape. The only one is the monster that destroys half your constructs rounded down, or rounded up, I guess. Rounded up. You don't lose everything. There's no complete construct wipe other than Dust to Dust. Very important depending upon the sets you're playing. If you mix it with a lot of the earlier sets in particular, all the early sets have a lot of construct destruction. This kind of goes down in value as a result. It's not as important to be able to wipe them all. But keep this in mind. If you don't have those top tier cards that go forward on your own plans, this is a great thing to have in your pocket. You're not going to use it every time, but having it around is a good thing to have. Next up, I would say is our... Wow, this is jumping really fast. Oh yeah, I should use the mouse instead. Brainstorm Sentry. 1 and 1 for each Mechana construct. It can get hugely powerful, but if your constructs get wiped out or weakened, it weakens itself really badly. It's kind of one of those really miserable things to pick up from a Nihilus if you don't have any Mechana constructs in your deck, and now you just have literally a dead card. I typically don't ever see it get bought unless you happen to have a really lucky game that went this way, or you at least had something like Dreamlab in your hand. In fact, I kind of skipped over Dreamlab. Dreamlab falls up there above Chronicle of Vigil. The list I was looking at on my computer doesn't have the Dreamlab in the list. I'm not sure why. It's just deleted out of this list, but it falls right on the line between good low cost and the bad low cost. Being able to acquire constructs for 1 less is a good effect. 2 for 2, nice, cheap, effective. You're almost always going to buy it by the end of the game, at least for its honor value. I highly recommend picking that up. Pretty good card. If you have that in Brainstorm, at least you're going to have something you can go off of before buying this card. Next up is Imaginative Matron. I was really excited about this card the very first time I read it, and I've played with it, I've played with it, I've played with it, I've played with it, and ultimately I'm disappointed. Draw a card, then discard a card. Return any card from your discard pile to your hand. Well, if you draw it when you don't have an Enlighten to set off the Unite effect, you have literally reduced your hand size by 1. You draw up to a 5th card because you've already played one, and then get rid of your worst. So it's not that bad because you're getting rid of the worst thing in your hand, but just having a random 5th card probably could have done about the same thing as keeping the best 4. Return a card from your discard pile to your hand, you can get something huge like Pasythea or Adeu or whatever it is, Imri, something huge back into your hand. And it doesn't even say hero, it says card, so you can turn like a chaos cannon or something back into your hand. Really, really effective. But it doesn't go off very often. Even when you get the Unite, you have to have a discard pile. If you draw it in your first hand, well, you discard a card, you draw that same card back. It's like this never happened because you would have drawn it instead of the Imaginative Matron anyway. Yeah. In some of those early sets where there are things like draw 3 cards, then discard 1 if it's enlightened, you're done, or discard 2, or draw 2 cards, discard 1, things like that make the Imaginative Matron better because you're guaranteed to at least have something in your discard pile to choose from. But still, those ones you were kind of getting rid of your worst things usually. I'm done with this card. Let's move on to the next one, Askaran Armor. You'll notice this is very nearly the worst thing. I like to call it the Ashcan Armor because it's basically a trash can. This is a dump card. It's a 1 insight for 1 point, buy it at the end of the game. Or if your entire first hand was just so sucky, you can buy one of these to buy the other one of these in order to get some more Dreamscape options. That's pretty miserable though. You're hoping to instead get some heroes on the board that'll let you add more Dreamscape options, or kill some monsters to get more Dreamscape options, and then you'll like those and be able to use your insight better. You almost never want to acquire this unless it's the end of the game and you're just getting some free honor added to your deck. And then the very worst card of the cheap ones is Ashes to Ashes. If you're the second player, you can wait till the very last turn and use this to get more options for monsters or constructs to buy, or try to hope that some more Dreamborn hit the center and give you even more insight. It's unlikely to pay for itself at that point. Not really sure why you would do it strictly for that, but you're hoping to get some back so you can buy something else instead. There's really not a lot of times where Ashes to Ashes is great. That said, every once in a while I'll be playing a game where I have all this power, or I have all this buying, and there are some huge heroes and constructs, or there's some huge monsters, and someone hits Ashes to Ashes just to reset the center and get rid of a lot of my great options. And that hurts. But it hurt them really badly to have gained nothing in their deck, none of these other Dreamscape cards that could have done something. It was a panic button. I put this as the absolute worst card in the low cost. Not the worst card in the set though, we're getting to that. So mid-cost cards, we have Test of Faith. Of all the not so great mid-costers, this is the next one up that I'd be willing to do. It is reveal the top card, acquire it. If it's a hero, you get to put it in your hand. If I'm 1 short on my power or runes to buy something, I might hit a Test of Faith hoping that I get the right kind of hero into my hand. Maybe not, but maybe I'll get lucky and get a big monster or a big construct. Who knows what you get with this? It's literally a gamble. You might get a 1-cost monster or something. 1-cost monster, 1-cost hero. Overall though, having this in your hand is not going to hurt you to have that as an option, or to get it free off of a Nightmare Tyrant or something and get some extra card in that turn. If you're 1 monster off of Beserker's Frenzy, I've hit it off of Test of Faith trying to hit a monster with that. It's a really effective and fun way to have done that. Yes, you're gambling. That's the entire point of the card. It's reasonable. And now for the absolute worst card in the entire set, in my opinion, is the Yggdrasil Canopy. Whenever you would gain star without defeating a monster, gain twice that star instead. There are huge combos in the total realm of Ascension off of this. Some of the heroes that are lifebound and are giving you 2 honor every turn, or 3 honor, and you gain more. If you mix this with War of Shadows and you get one of those 3-cost lifebound that give you 3 honor, and you can unite it for another 3 honor, getting 6 off a single play, well, doubling that to 12, yeah, that's a really big play. The biggest plays of all come when you mix it with things like Darkness Unleashed, where there's the transform lifebound hero Jacob that gives you a bunch of points and doubles the rest of your honor points for the rest of the turn. If you can do something like have the Canopy in play and then play Jacob to double that from 5 to 10, and then maybe you play a hero that doubles the Jacob effect and doubles the doubling, you can get a huge combo going. Or if you ever manage to acquire Nairi's Blessing, maybe you had so much insight spam, you get the Canopy in play, and you've been sitting on the insight, you play Nairi's Blessing and get an extra 10, or Beserker's Frenzy and get an extra 10, making them worth 20. Those are huge. But it goes off so rarely for the 5 cost point and 2 honor. Just not a very good card. Do not add this in your starting hand. If you get it through all the rest of the play in the game and the circumstances are looking right, by all means use it. I've seen it used effectively. I've seen everything used effectively. But this is just trash in your start hand. Okay, the final things to go over for the high cost are Wicked End. Cost 7, it's above those mid-tier. Defeat a monster in the center row. This does not combo with things like Stalk the Shadows or Imri that allows you to kill stuff in the Void or Sidranus. Any of that stuff it doesn't combo with. You must have that monster be in the center row, not kill something as if it was in the center row. It doesn't apply. So keep that in mind. Very limited use. Sometimes you can get lucky and kill something like a Nightmare Tyrant to get the Wicked End to kill a Nihilus, or at least another 5-6 point monster. But it doesn't go off. It's so expensive. Don't pick this in your starting lineup unless everything is trash. And I mean everything, like you had 2 canopies and a test of faith kind of bad. Next up, even worse than Wicked End, I know I just said this is worse than Wicked End, you heard me, is Order of the Gear. One of the most exciting combo cards in this game, and yet it falls so flat. Can turn all of your Mechana heroes into constructs instead, and you can use their abilities once every single turn. Sounds so awesome, and it's not all that hard to get for free, just getting 4 constructs of any type. They don't have to be Mechana. So if you can start your Dreamscape hand off with something like a Dream Lab and a Chronicle of Vigil or Vigils Resolve and Order of the Gear, you're already going to only need to buy 2 constructs out of the center, which are going to be discounted once you have Dream Lab in play. Not that hard to get in. However, what are all the Mechana heroes in this set? You have the Inventor that banishes himself. Doesn't matter whether he was a construct or not. It means you can save him for a future turn rather than use him the turn you draw him. But pretty otherwise. You have Hadron Beserker. There are 3 of these. Super powerful once you have that many constructs. 3 runes and 3 power. That's basically what you're getting with it. That's all of the heroes except for the Dreamscape ones with the Brainstorm. Now that's really what Order of the Gear was made to be comboed off of, was having Brainstorms and Order of the Gear. If you combine it with other sets, obviously there are going to be more Mechana heroes that you can get this combo off on, and maybe it'll be a little more useful. I do admit to taking Order of the Gear much more frequently in mixed sets, because I'm going to be able to have more Mechana that I can do this with, and I'm going to have lower insight coming into the center row if I don't have pure Dreamscape. So having something with a free ability to buy isn't a bad plan for one of my slots. Just keep in mind, it doesn't always work out that great. By the time that you've got that many constructs and that many Mechana heroes, you're probably already either winning or the game's about to end. I've not seen a lot of super careful, close games won by this. I've seen shutouts dominated by it, but not really any close wins, and that's what I'm looking for in my first picks in Dreamscape. How do I win the game either because of it, that's what made it a shutout, or I swing a game that was close. Next up is R of the Askara. Hard to play 2 Enlightened Heroes with the same name in a turn. It really is. There are actually a couple sets in this game that have repeat heroes that make it a little easier than you might think. For example, the Arha Sensei comes up in several sets. Well, if you combine those sets, now your probability of being able to get 2 of them goes up. Now, since they're not actually shaping your deck to be any smaller when they're doing their banish, the chance of drawing them both on the same turn aren't great, but it's better. So things like that might influence your choice of this, being able to get it off a Nightmare and double a hero. If you're getting this early enough in the game, it is absolutely amazing to double your best card and be able to decide, do I want more runes, do I want more power, do I just want some more points, did I have a combo thing that was setting off Unites? Well, I'm going to set off that Unite again. Maybe I double with the Bringer, then quadruple with the copied Bringer. Huge stuff like that. Another thing to note, if you have a single Bringer or a single Reverie Muse and you use the Aura to copy it, you are not going to get the quadruple effect. When you copy, you are copying the effect of the hero. You are not playing a virtual of that type. So copying a Reverie Muse doesn't have a new Lifebound being played. It only has a thing that says gain 1 rune and unite off of any other Lifebound in play to double. You will double 1 time uniting the copy with the original, but the original has nothing to unite off of and does not double again. Just keep that in mind, because there are a lot of people that go to put this combo off, they hit it, and then they go, oh, that was less effective than I wanted. Disappointment reigns. And then the final card, the absolute worst, even worse than Yggdrasil's Canopy. Don't take this card, Call of Darkness. The price point for 8 insight is so bad. Even if you were able to get it for free at some point in the game, well, you have to have a discard pile at that point, and they have to all be trash. Normally, they're after 1 hand, they're early in the middle of the game, there might only be 2 or 3 cards you want to banish in there. I never see Call of Darkness being used effectively. When someone's managing to get to this price point or get it for free, there are so many other cards they would have rather had. I'd rather have a Dream Lab for free than have Call of Darkness in the mid-game on average. If I got the Call of Darkness for free in the mid-game and I absolutely had all of my trash in my discard deck and I was able to get rid of all of that, that'd be epic. I'd be very happy about that. But don't pick this in your starting hand. Alright, that's it for part 2 of Dreamscape cards, which ones to pick. Just to review, your low coster should be your priority. Getting 2 of those would be ideal. Lunar Embrace, Stalk the Shadows, Vigils Resolve, Arbiter, Censer, Reverie, Muse, Bringer of Despair, and then Dream Lab on the line. Under the line, where you're not really wanting them, but they're alright, is Dust to Up Dust, Chronicle of Vigil, Brainstorm Sentry, Imaginative Matron, Askaran Armor, and Ashes to Ashes. In your mid-costers, the 4 to 6, you want Techno Leap really strongly. Cetra's Respite's better than you might think. It's alright to have. And then Test of Faith, while not terrible, is still not your top pick, and the Canopy is trash. For your high costers, you want Beserker's Frenzy and Nairi's Blessing as your high priorities. Armistice right after that, and Pasythea next. And then for your high costers that you don't really want, but you might be interested in picking one of if you didn't have any of the other top tier picks, are Wicked End, Order of the Gear, then Aura of the Askara, and very lastly for the entire set, don't take Call to Darkness. Please don't. Just don't do it. Alright, I hope you've enjoyed.